Hey guys, welcome back to Motorcycle Maintenance Channel. On this episode, we're going to show you how to put silicone hoses on this 06 CBR 1000. Stay tuned. Okay, the first thing we need to do is take off the seat, which is a 5mm Allen key. We're going to leave the screws there though, so that we know where they are. And it'll just slip right back on again. And the seat's off. Let's put them over here. Next, we're going to take the gas tank cover off. Again, 5mm Allen key. Now, if yours is a stock bike with stock bolts, these will also be a 5mm Allen key. This, however, has different bolts in it, which is a Phillips, which will happen to a sport bike over time. This little plastic shroud, and then on the other side there'll be another plastic shroud that looks just like it. There we go. Next, there'll be two 5mm Allen key hexes right here at the top. Move the handlebar out of the way so you can see it. It's right here. And there's one directly on the other side. Same location. Alright, and we'll just lift that up and it comes right off. This is what's really nice about Hondas, is that this is a cover. So if anything happens to this, this can just be replaced. You don't have to get a new gas tank. Alright, now we're going to unbolt the gas tank so it can be lifted up and out of the way. 5mm Allen key. And we will unbolt these things. On the other side, there's one just like it, just right over here on the other side of it. Now we're going to take off the gas tank bolts back here. 10mm. Yeah, I got to take that hose off, and then this electrical connector down here. So once you get the gas tank up, you can use a stick like this, or a piece of wood, and just kind of prop it up like that, so that way you don't have to hold it the entire time. And then we're going to get down here and disconnect this gas line, and you just get like a little pick or a little screwdriver and pry this little Honda calls it a quick release, but it's kind of hard, so you got to kind of pry it like this and pull at the same time. So we're going to pull this hose off, which this is an old bike and it's never had its gas tank removed, so the hose is kind of on there real good. I'm probably just going to have to cut it and then reattach it a little shorter. But it's almost off. And there it goes. And that's why we're, part of what we're doing is replacing the radiator hoses for the same reasons. They just kind of deteriorate over time. But look at that thing, it's horrible. And I'll just recut it and then reattach it. Or I might order a new hose. But that hose is off. So after that hose comes off, now we're just going to disconnect the fuel pump, which is this black 2P connector down here. And this fuel pump is connected by this black 2P electrical connector. It just connects in like this. It looks like that. And to reconnect it for you, it goes like that. And then to pull it out, you're just going to push here and then pull. And then now your fuel pump's disconnected. It's a 10 millimeter bolt there. Now the tank should just come right out. All right, we already took off the gas tank and got the hoses up here exposed. Now we're going to take off the side fairings and expose the hoses that are down here underneath these plastics. Typically on a Honda, a 2006 Honda, 2007 Honda, these are going to be 5 millimeter Allen keys, but given its years and how old it is, there'll be some different bolts holding it together, and that happens. It happens to all of them. So like this one's a 4, should be a 5, but it's not a big deal. And up here, and then this is just a little pull pop. You twist it like a 1/4 turn, and then you can just kind of pull it out. And be gentle with it because they tend to break. All right. So now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. It has the same bolts and screws. Okay. So there's going to be 4 little plastic bolts in here. This one only has 3 because it fell out. And just like on our R6, you kind of push in on them in the middle, and then you can pull them out. Also be careful with these because these plastic things like to break. Alright, now there's these little Phillips screws here on either side. And looks like they're just those 1/4 turn ones, so we'll pull those out. One on this side. And then down here, you get another Phillips screw. There she goes. Alright, so now this thing is all unscrewed. We're just going to pull it off. And you want to pull it kind of back and out. Gently. Oh no! There's one more down here at the bottom. It's alright, we'll get that one right now. And it's going to be just a little plastic push one like these. There we go. And then we'll get the other sides too, because there's one on each side. And that's a different fastener too. Alright, there we go. So these two that are at the bottom down here, like this, those are the only 2 you want to pull out. There's another 2 that look just like this that hold these 2 black pieces together. We're actually going to leave those in and take this bottom fairing off, and we're going to take that off as one piece, and I'll show you that in a second. But this is coming off. We need to disconnect our blinkers. So we're going to unbolt here and here, and on the other side there'll be 2 on the pretty almost the exact location. And then this whole thing will just drop to the floor. So undo that and open this. There we go. Now we'll drain the radiator fluid from the water pump. If you're going to drain the radiator fluid, the way the book says, we're going to pull this out, and when we put that bolt back into the water pump, we need to replace it with a fresh sealing washer. On Honda, it's 90-463-ML7-000. It's just a crushed copper washer. You don't have to do that. You could just take the hoses off right here and right here and drain it that way. You can see our R6 video. We're going to go ahead and do it this way since I do have the washer on hand, and we'll just charge it to the customer. And there's just no real good way to do this to not make a mess. It's always a messy job. This fluid actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. There it goes. If you notice, the old sealing washer is actually still stuck on the water pump. I'm going to pull that off because we don't want to double up on those washers. I'll wait till it stops draining. All right, so now it's drained. We would flush it out with water, but we're going to move on to our next part, which is taking off these hoses, and we're going to put on silicone hoses, and then we'll come back to flushing it. So when replacing these hoses, as you can see, this one's leaking. It was leaking radiator fluid out here. When we replace these hoses, we're going to start with the bigger hoses first because we didn't get the $200 Samco hoses, which I personally think is ridiculous. We got these G Plus hoses. They're also silicone hoses, but they're only 40 bucks, and I think they're actually really good quality. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to pay $200 for a water hose. But if you see the threads that G Plus uses, it's done really well for just, you know, $40 hoses. And we'll compare them actually with one of those when I take that off, and you can see the difference. The best thing to do is to start with the big hoses first, the longer hoses, and then we'll work our way down to the smaller ones. And the reason you want to do that is because sometimes you have to cut them to size. So we'll just go ahead and undo these clamps. Where's that clamp? This clamp here. They did provide us with clamps, but we're going to try to use as much as reuse as much of the factory clamps as possible. They're just better quality. are difficult to pull off. Alright, so we got one of our hoses off already. And if we look at the threads on the factory hose, it's just a rubber hose, and look at the threads on our G Plus hoses. So yeah, it's not a name brand hose, and it doesn't cost $200, but you can definitely tell there's more threading holding it together than even the factory hose. So all in all, I think this is a quality product and a good purchase. Yeah, it's really, these hoses are deteriorating. If you watch our R6 radiator flush video, you see those hoses are in much better shape and they come off a lot easier than these. Which is why we've chosen to replace them. Go find where that clamp went. This one looks like that one, so that'll go there. I'll put it together so we know. Looks like it has a little heat shield guard around it. See if we were provided with the guard. We were not provided with a guard. So what we'll do is take this heat shielding off and put it on the new hose. This looks similar. We'll go with that for now. I might change though later. I think we're going to choose this shorter one right here. And the reason we're going to choose that one is because as you can see, this one's longer. So it'll make up for the difference. And this one looks kind of similar to that one. So that'll go there. I'm kind of doing it like this too because when I start taking everything off, kind of lose track of where they go. So that one's kind of hard to get to with our screwdriver. So I'm going to get a little bitty socket and see if I can't do it with that. There we go. You can see all these hoses were kind of leaking. Now before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and put the new hose on right there. This is the one we've chosen to replace this one. And we'll take its clamps. Now, when we put this clamp back on there, we're going to put it in a way that we can get to it easier than the way it was. And we angled it down instead of the way it was so that we can use a screwdriver to tighten it. Now we'll replace the one behind it. All right, that one's off. I personally would have gotten red hoses. Oh, don't forget to put the clamp on there. Give them the clamps. Now we will go and get this guy off. I'm going to have to go on the other side and unscrew this clamp here. There we go. And if you notice, this guy has a lot of heat shielding around it too because it sits behind the headers. So it's going to be real important that we transfer these over to the new pipe. Kind of get them in a similar location. All right, so get our clamp back on there and we'll just place it right back over, back where it came from. You know what, let's put the clamp over there first. Put this white pipe back in. Oh, don't forget your clamp. I'm going to do this guy next. You bleeding? Yeah, you bleeding. There we go. So as you can see, there are definitely some small adjustments you need to make for fitment of the hoses and, you know, positioning of the clamps. Okay, that's good. I don't want to make them too small. And it does seem like there's a little kink, but there's no pressure in it. Once these get heated up, that's really not that bad. They'll expand out, and supposedly the silicone will move the water faster than the rubber because they don't expand as much and it's quicker. But overall, I think I'm happy with the way that looks. Make sure the heat shielding is in a good spot to protect it from the headers, that little pipe. Okay, so the other end of this hose is right there. So I'm going to come over the engine like this. Start unscrewing it. Alright, so there's where the other side of that hose is. There we go. And as you can see, it's a little long, so we'll definitely be cutting this guy down a little bit. So next little hose is going to be on the other side up here. And twisting it from outside the motorcycle with a long screwdriver like this. And this is kind of yank it off. Now, getting this one here is going to be pretty difficult. feeding that hose down to the bottom part. I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's not great for it, but it's not bad. Horrible for it either. You should put a little WD-40 on the nipple there. Not inside it, just around the outside. Maybe a few little drops might get in there, but for the most part, it's just to help me slide this on there because of where it's at. And, you can't lose your clamp either. Silicone grease would probably be better for this type of stuff. It's one you don't want to mess up though, because say it starts leaking coolant from there later. It's a lot of stuff to take apart to get to it. far. Let's go up higher too. Tighten it. Monkey around with it for a little bit. Like I said, you want to take your time with this one because if it leaks from there, you're going to hate yourself. Alright, feels good. Now let's attach it on the water pump. Alright, well there's a hard one. Here's our original. And remember when you're cutting it, don't cut it the same size. Leave it a little longer. Leave it like a 1/4 inch longer on this side. And leave it like a 1/4 inch longer on this side. You can always go smaller. Okay, same kind of deal. We're going to cut it short, but we're going to leave it about 1/4 inch longer than the original. So we're going to put them on, right? But we're just kind of going to hold it up there first because we want our clamps to be in a position to where we can reach them and tighten them. You don't want to loosen these too much because then they could come undone. But this hose is a lot larger than the one that was on there. So like that, will I be able to reach it? Look like that would be good. Let's try it out. So put it there, a little nozzle. This connects to a thermostat. It looks like this hose, what it does is run radiator fluid through the throttle body, which my Camaro did the same thing. Again, these hoses are in a really horrible spot, so you want to make sure they are super tight and they will never leak. Ta-da! That's those hoses. So I got that our little Allen wrench here, our little crescent wrench. Loosen up this pipe. It's loose. I'll loosen up, put the thermostat side. There's this guy. We have this extra hose, which we're going to cut up and use here. I think G Plus does this because they sell hoses for, I think this kit probably fits multiple bikes. But we're going to cut it right here and use this hose. Looks about right. I'm just going to connect it over here, make it easier for me. I like this pipe that Honda did. Instead of making it a hose that goes all the way to the radiator. However, if you lay the bike down on the right side, this thing tends to get smushed and you have to replace it. Ta-da! Now we're going to do these two just off the bike. Is it good? Looks good. Silicone, silicone. Silicone. It's not too bad, I guess. Yeah, it's fine. I'm going to put the clamps on it though. Alright, now all our hoses are silicone. They went from rubber to silicone. Now we have all of our silicone hoses underneath the gas tank installed. So now we're going to put the gas tank back on. Ideally, you would like to run all the fuel out of your gas tank before doing this because it makes it a lot lighter. But sometimes it just happens this way. So we're going to go ahead and push this little fastener through and start hand tightening just a little bit. A couple revolutions, then we'll go ahead and do it on the other side. Just hand tight. Yeah, it's fine. All right, so before we hook up the hoses, we're gonna put this little dust cover in, and then we'll hook up our hoses and then bolt in the rest of the gas tank. So, dust cover is kind of comes in this way and connects to these little tabs around the air box. One there. One there. Here. One there. Alright. That goes in like that. And this other dust cover will go around the front. The thin part will go in the center, and we'll connect these two tabs, these two things that go around like that and like that. All right, and then just like that. And then this one will come. This little opening is for the screw hole here. And then the last tab will connect. Go around there. A loop. There we go. And around this way. And there it goes. Now we'll go ahead and connect our hoses and bolt in the last two bolts for the gas tank. Okay. Now it's just barely in there, but now it can pivot back and forth like so. So now that that's pivoting, we're going to take our fuel pump, our fuel hose, and connect it back over this nipple here. Actually, probably clean that off before I put it back on. Some of the hose kind of deteriorated and got all caked all over the nipple, so I'm going to scrape that clean and then we'll go ahead and fasten it. All right, so we just spent about 30-40 minutes scraping off this little nipple here of all the old deteriorating rubber. Now we're going to hook in the fuel line. Just put that over here like so. Oh, actually. I'll pull it off real quick. Just gonna move this little clamp up. This clamp goes over the nipple and puts pressure on it. We're going to get real close to it because we already had to cut the hose a little short just to take it off. Put a little WD-40 around there to help slide it. There it goes. A little WD-40 always does a trick. And now I'm going to go and get my needle nose pliers and pinch this clamp. Honda has since used a different system to put these on, which is great because I don't really like these clamps. Alright, there it is. We got the fuel line connected. Now we're going to connect our fuel pump. Also extremely important because if this isn't connected, your bike won't start. So I'll grab the black 2P connector and we'll just push them together. There we go. And it's in. I think. All right, there it is. So we probably could have changed the switch out without this and just propped the gas tank up like that, but it had been really cramped in there. So just for the ease of everything, we took the gas tank out. Okay, so it's all connected. We'll lower it. And we'll put these screws back where they go. Right here. And then there's another one on the other side. Just finger tighten it to get it started so we make sure we don't cross thread. Okay, now that they're started, we'll go get our 10mm, and I think that's a number 5 Allen key, and we'll tighten up all 4 gas tank bolts. All right, gas tank's on. Now we'll get our gas tank cover. Looks like he's missing a little collar here, so we'll provide one for him. Got those guys there. We'll put these 2 bolts. Let me show you on this side. There's one that goes right on the other side. Here, that bushing's in rough shape. I'm just kind of holding that little collared piece on the back. Feed the screw through. Completely came out. All right. No matter. I actually have an extra bushing here that we can provide. This will happen. You'll have to replace your bushings. So they're made of rubber and they deteriorate. Okay, it's in there with our hand. Number 5 Allen key. And tighten it just enough. I mean, it's plastic and rubber, so not a whole lot of force. To the other side. Now, on these CBRs, there's a little gasket that goes around the gas tank here. You can kind of pick it out a little bit because it'll get compressed. And you can pull on it. And it'll probably rise up to the top too after we tighten it down. Okay, and then we have these back bolts down here. Again, this is just a plastic piece. No need to really torque it down past hand tight. Go back over each one, just tighten it. Alright, gas tank cover is on. Now the little trim pieces. So that just slides in there like that. And the one screw will tighten up the trim piece. Right there, we'll come to the other side. Do the same thing. All right. And the gas tank's on. Now we can put our seat. Seat just slides on like that. Get our 5 Allen key. Because the seats get taken on and off a lot, sometimes these won't be original bolts up here. I believe the 5 Allen key is for the original bolts. But if it's not an original bolt, it's not a big deal because they tend to get stripped out the more you take, the more you take the seat off and on. Seats on. Now we can go to flushing our radiator. Alright guys, as you can see, this CBR 1000 now has all new silicone hoses all over it. It's kind of a big chore, it's kind of a big job, but we did it. And it should pay off because it needed new pipes, and now the rider is not going to have to worry about having coolant leak all over the place. So that's how you put silicone hoses on a CBR 1000. Stay out of the grease, everybody.